the people out there, I'm still delivering, I'm still providing value. And I think that's what we forget. Like, we don't have to be perfect to show up for our people. If we show up as ourselves and show them, okay, I want to provide value to you guys, my community, because you matter to me. Hi there, and welcome to episode 10 of the Master the Media podcast. I'm your host, Amy Gorin, and today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome when it comes to working with the media and working with brands. And this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart because it comes up a lot when I'm coaching our students in Master the Media. Before we dive in, I just want to share that if you're curious at all about how to dive into this world of working with the media, working with brands, getting paid by brands, we have a free guide for you at the Master the Media website. So it's masterthemedia.co/start. And you can go to the show notes to download that. So, I really think imposter syndrome and perfectionism go hand in hand. And I will tell you, and I share this all the time with my students, that, I am a perfectionist by nature. It's really, really hard for me. And I'm always kind of struggling with my inner perfectionist on, okay, I'm going to do this. And it might not be perfect, but it's still much, much better than not doing it at all. Because the reality is, if you wait for things to be perfect, they probably won't happen. They won't get done. And this is something that comes up a lot when I'm talking with my students is, well, shouldn't I wait until I have, or even when people are thinking about starting Master the Media and starting working with media and brands, it's like, shouldn't I have a really nice website and all the social media channels and a following before I start working with brands? Sometimes it's like, shouldn't I even have media experience before I start diving into this? And the answer to all of that is no, you do not need to have those things. And I want to talk about the why, but I also want to talk about kind of the mindset part of moving past this idea of being an imposter, that you have to be and that you have to be perfect about everything that you're doing. So I'll give you some examples, that are personal to me that probably are surprising. So I have been a dietitian since 2015. And I pretty much started working with brands right away, started working with the media right away. And I'm not going to call it the ugliest website, but I'm going to call it not a super pretty website. It was created on this platform called Jimdo. I created it myself. And so it was very, very homemade looking, but it had all of the important things on there. It had my picture on the homepage. It had a short, bio about who I am. I'm Amy Gorin, a plant-based registered dietitian nutritionist. It had my contact information. It had links to my social media handles, and it had my media features. And those are the important things. And I have to tell you, I had that website for many, many years until about 3 years ago. I decided, okay, I want to get more serious about blogging, and I want to have a plant-based nutrition blog that I can monetize, which means that I could use the traffic that comes to that blog to create ad revenue. And so I focused. I knew that I researched this, and I knew that the only way for me to even have a chance of getting there was to move my site to WordPress, because that's where all the really good plugins for blogging and SEO and Google friendly stuff are. Especially, if I wanted to be a recipe site, like one of the best recipe plugins is a WordPress only plugin. It's called WP Recipe Maker. Anyway, so I hired a web designer to create a website for me. Really, really beautiful. I spent quite a bit of money getting it really beautiful and up and running and smooth sailing. And then I did end up qualifying for this ad revenue platform called Mediavine, which is like one of the top ad revenue platforms for recipe bloggers. And so that allows me to make anywhere between $300 and $600 or $700 a month in ad revenue. And that is completely passive income, by the way. I have not posted a new blog post in I don't know, at least 6 or 9 months, probably longer. And I'm still getting people coming to the website and I'm still earning that passive income. So that was my goal in kind of creating a pretty website. But I have to tell you, when it came to every other part of business, I don't see patients, but I do have a client wait list for patients for the one day when I'm going to hire another dietitian to take on those patients. So the number of people coming to my wait list, still the same. The number of brands finding me through my website and coming to me and offering me spokesperson opportunities, still the same. And the number of media finding me through either another article that I was quoted in or just Googling me and finding me through my website, still the same. So the only thing that was impacted by me having a really beautiful website was my blog and the traffic that comes to my blog and the revenue that I make from my blog. So I just want to point that out because a lot of times we just hold ourselves back. And, you know, my very, very first blog post on my very old website that I created on Jimdo, my very first blog post was actually sponsored by a brand. They wanted me to create a recipe. And I was like, okay, I better create a blog because I don't have one. And now I will. And so they hired me to create that recipe because we were going to feature it in a media article. And it was because of the influence I had in the media, my recipe development skills, my food photography skills. It wasn't because of this beautiful website that I had. So I just really want that to hit home that you don't have to be perfect. And this is something that a lot of our new students come in the door and I'm like, okay, if you want to compromise with yourself, create a one-page website. It can either be on WordPress and you can grow that website into something bigger later, or there's a lot of platforms like Wix and Squarespace, and those can be great for long-term solutions, but they're also great for short-term solutions because it's really easy to go in there yourself, create a one-page website that has the important things. So your picture, your name, your credentials, your quick bio about yourself, a way to contact you. So brands and media can contact you. Also, ideally, an as seen in section that has, featured in whatever media outlets you've been featured in. So like US News, Women's Health, Men's Health, and then a link to your social media profiles. That's really all that you need, and you can develop everything else later. Same thing goes with social media. And I say all the time, like, you do not need a social media following to work with the media, to get paid a lot of money working with brands. And the reason is because we are experts with influence. As healthcare professionals, we have credentials that we worked really hard for. We have years of practice experience, and that's what the media and the brands are looking for, not necessarily your social media following. Of course, it can't hurt. But that's why I also encourage all of our students just create at least one social media platform. You don't have to be on every platform. You don't have to be on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Threads and Blue Sky. You can just start with one or two of those. And what we do in the beginning of Master the Media is we actually help the experts that we work with, we help them go through an exercise to figure out where is your audience actually living. So your audience, maybe they're a 40-year-old woman and they're on Instagram, versus if they're a 25-year-old woman who's single versus married, maybe she's on TikTok instead. So you can kind of just figure out what audience you're talking to. And then if you create a profile, start off by posting not that often. So if you start posting once a week or even twice a month, as long as you're not posting 5 times a week and then you start all of a sudden posting once a month, then your audience is like, what can I expect from this person? I don't get it. But if you only increase how often you're talking to your audience later, then it can only get better from there. But the reason I'm saying just create a profile is because when you're working with media, when you're working with brands, the main goal of all of this is you want to be accessible. And so you want people to be able to find you on Instagram, on TikTok, whichever platform you're on. And so if a reporter from US News or Newsweek or HuffPost they're like, oh, I want to interview Amy, I need a plant-based dietitian, they should be able to easily go to my Instagram, find my contact information, and contact. And so that's really a main goal of having social media. It's not even necessarily having the follower count that you can use as leverage to get brand partnerships. Now, the ironic thing that happens with websites and social media is when you start working with the media and you start working with brands, I call it this like circle that's never ending, because you oftentimes in the media, you're able to include a link back to either your social platform or your website. So if I said, if I'm giving an interview to Eating Well, and I say, I give a quote about the health benefits of peaches, and then I say, please credit me as Amy Gorin, MSRDN, a plant-based registered dietitian in Stamford, Connecticut. And I link back my name or the name of my business to my website. What happens is all of a sudden I have people coming to my website. Maybe I have a pop-up that says grab a free vegan meal plan, which I actually do have on my website. And then I start getting people's email addresses. And that's something that I can use to market to, either for my own products or for a brand. Or say I link my name to my Instagram, then people are going to my Instagram, potentially following me. And that's how I'm increasing my follower count. And so it just happens organically this way. And so it's really the same mindset of, okay, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to even try and be perfect. When you're thinking about anything that has to do, honestly, anything in life, but let's talk specifically about working with the media, working with brands. I just see a lot of healthcare experts getting in their heads about, I have to, like when they join Master the Media. Okay, Master the Media is a 6-month program. We give you a schedule where it can take you 3 months or less to go through all of the modules, all of the educational materials. And while you're doing that, you can have already started applying the concepts to start getting featured in the media, start putting your name in the hat for the opportunities we're sharing in our private Facebook community. And you can also start pitching brands and start making brand revenue money. But a lot of people get in their heads and they're like, well, I should spend months and months going through the whole course, learn everything, and then I should get I should get at least 10 or 20 media features, and then I can start thinking about pitching brands. And it's like, no, let's do it all at once, which might feel like crazy to us perfectionists. But the reality is you don't need 10 or 20 media features to start landing brand partnerships. You need 3 to 5, just as much to kind of just enough to like fill in an SCN section on your website, or to be able to, in a pitch letter, list, I've been featured in HuffPost and Eat This Not That, and this and Lose It. And that's really all that you need. More is definitely nice. And the more you have, you can say, like, I have a media reach of whatever it is, the number is that you added it together. It could be 3 million, it could be 30 million. For me, it's 3 billion. But the reality of all of this is, first of all, if you don't start doing something, you're never going to get better at it. And so if you don't start talking to the media, answering media queries, putting your name in the hat for opportunities, you're going to stay, where you are, which might be okay. But like, the more that you give those responses, the more that, when our students give responses, we give them instructor feedback, we help them, finesse it for the next time. So you get better, and then you get more features published. And then you can use that as leverage to pitch brands. And same thing with brands. A lot of it is like, if you're not putting the feelers out there, you don't stand a chance, because a lot of times these brand opportunities, some of them do happen really quickly within a matter of weeks, but some of them, the brand will hold on to your ideas and your contact information, sometimes for, a couple of months. And so if you don't start putting your name in the hat now and start pitching out ideas and having conversations with brands and start networking, by the time you get anywhere, it's going to be much, much later. And you would have wasted a lot of time just kind of thinking about being perfect. The other thing is, we're all experts at what we do, right? Like, I am an expert in plant-based nutrition. I am an expert in media. I am an expert in paid brand partnerships. And I don't want to say like I'm going to do something at 80% of my capacity, but if I'm feeling off one day and I still go out there and I still deliver, I still record a podcast episode, I still coach my students, I still give a media interview, my 80% might be somebody else's 175%. And so the people out there I'm still delivering, I'm still providing value. And I think that's what we forget. Like, we don't have to be perfect to show up for our people. If we show up as ourselves and show them, okay, maybe you can tell right now I'm a little congested. My allergies are going crazy. It's like one of the hottest days in the year right now here in Connecticut. And I don't feel that great, but I'm still here. I'm still recording this podcast episode because I want to provide value to you guys, my community, because you matter to me. And also, I'm not allowing my inner perfectionist to win. If I was doing that, okay, I'd wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow, I don't feel great. Okay, let's wait 2 weeks from now. Well, then, I wouldn't have ever even gotten my podcast off the ground. And so sometimes we just have to rip off those band-aids and do the things. And, really fighting that inner perfectionist is also fighting that feeling of imposter syndrome because, if we let ourselves, we can think, oh, well, this person knows what she's talking about so much more than I do, or she just delivers it so much better. I'll give you an example. I remember when I first started doing media interviews as a dietitian, I read this article in Women's Health about like the about this really complicated metabolic process called ATP. If any of you guys took chemistry, you know what I'm talking about. But also, I am not a science person. I took all the chemistries, all the organic chemistries and nutritional biochemistry, and they were really interesting. I survived. I by no means can recite how ATP works to you today, like 10 years after having taken that class. And so I was reading an interview where another dietitian was basically explaining the whole ATP cycle in detail. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I ever going to have a presence in this industry where there's people who have memories better than me? They can recite these things better than I can. And I quickly came to realize after having done a few interviews, I was like, okay, phew, because I totally looked that up. I wrote down notes. If I was talking to this person over the phone, I had like 5 tabs open, plus a Word doc with my notes, plus like a bunch of studies that I could reference as I'm talking to the reporter. And I don't have to have everything memorized. I just have to know where to find it, how to translate it into a consumer-friendly way of understanding, which is what the media is all about. That's what makes you really like super important as a healthcare expert with influence, is being able to translate that science. And so then I realized, okay, I really am valuable as a dietitian in the media, as a healthcare professional in the media. So anyway, what I encourage you to do is just to, next time you're struggling with your inner perfectionist, you're struggling with that feeling of imposter syndrome, just go out and do the thing. I promise you, you're going to feel accomplished that you did it, and you're going to feel so proud of yourself. So again, if you want to learn more about getting started with the media, getting started working with brands, go grab your free Getting Started guide at masterthemedia.co/start.